meet the sun, then I move forth through crowded ways. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee.
When I laugh, oh, and when I cry, when pain, when my best friends misunderstand.
In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. Dear God, my God, I am Thine for eternity. Dear God, my God, I am Thine eternally. Though my path lead me over desert sands, though it take me through bitter storms, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee.
When I'm walking and when I can't repose, let the victory of love defeat.
In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. Dear God, my God, I am Thine for eternity. Dear God, my God, I am Thine eternally. Dear God, my God, I am Thine for eternity. Dear God, my God, I am Thine eternally.
So again, thank you all for coming to today's program. And as you know, the title is, or the topic is, Heal Yourself and Live in Joy. And actually speaking of this, Sairam's comments, which were very appropriate about language, I wanted to mention that actually my father is Tamilian, and so half my DNA is Tamilian, and the other half of it is American. And so far, so good. But in fact, 100% of my name is Tamilian, Dharmarajan Iyer. In fact, after a lecture that our spiritual directors gave to a packed audience of 700 people, a man came up to me at the end and said, "I have a question from this evening." And I said, "Yes, what is it?" He said, "How is it that your name came to be Iyer?" So I want to dispense with the great mystery right from the beginning. But so 100% of the name is Tamilian, but then when we come to the question of language, I have a little bit of a problem. Maybe 1% Tamil and the rest Angilam so far. So, but I'm working on it. We're both working on it. We're learning Tamil. We like Tamil. But it is still coming a little bit Meduva, Namaka, something like. Anyway, I better quit while I'm behind. So, in terms of understanding healing and joy, these are very wonderful concepts. But more than concepts, they are experiences. They are states of mind. And this is really what yoga as a science is for, not to give us words and information, and not even to give us techniques, though that's quite something. It's really, why do we practice those techniques? To give us an experience. And so we'd like to give you an experience right now of hopefully healing through greater energy level and also maybe even some joy sprinkled in there. And I'd like to ask Rajesh to come and lead us through it.
Okay, I'm going to ask everyone to stand. This is a exercise. It's called super conscious living exercise. It's a set of 6 exercises that we are going to do, and we'll dive right in. So the first exercise, every exercise here goes with an affirmation that we will be telling it aloud. So I'll tell that and then we'll do it together. Okay, the first one, we march in place, walk in place, along with the affirmation, I am awake and ready. Okay, begin. I am awake and ready. 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 Okay. Wow, that's good energy. So the second one, we go like this. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. Okay? I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. 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 One last time. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. Okay.
I hope there's not a program in the downstairs.
Yes. So the third one goes like this. We take our fist and we tap our arms and say, I am master of my body, I am master of myself. Okay? I am master of my body, I am master of myself. I am master of my body, I am master of myself. I am master of my body, I am master of myself. I am master of my body, I am master of myself. I am master of my body, I am master of myself. Cue. The fourth one goes like this. We take our palms, we rub all over our body, and we say, awake, rejoice, my body cells. 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 Okay? Fifth one is we take our fists, we tap our head all around, and we say, be glad, my brain, be wise and strong. 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 Okay, the last one, we take our fingers, we move the scalp in rotation, and we say, awake, my sleeping saint, wake. 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 Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. You were very good sports, and you made very efficient use of the space. So, continuing on in this line of an experience, we'd like to continue now with the energy that we've raised, that we've awakened in ourselves, and now take it more inward through a little bit of chanting and meditation.
Okay, so I'm sure everyone is familiar with chanting. We're going to begin with sitting up straight in our chairs. One of the purposes is to awaken devotion. This is not working. There we go. Closer. There we go. Okay. So, for the topic of healing and living in joy, we want to begin to really use our minds and our hearts to align ourselves with healing things ourselves, healing others, and also living in that joy. And chanting is a wonderful way to do it. Chanting opens the heart. It draws the energy from the base of the spine up to the spiritual eye. It has many benefits that we're not even aware of, and yet when we're done chanting, we feel so good. It's one of the easiest things we can do to uplift our consciousness. So we're going to do a very simple chant. It's called From Joy I Came, For Joy I Live. And I'm going to teach it to you. So, why don't you repeat after me? From joy I came, for joy I live. Together? From joy I came, for joy I live. Then I'll sing. In sacred joy I melt again. Together? In sacred joy I melt again. One more time. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. Beautiful. And now we're going to sing, it goes a little higher. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. Together? From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. Beautiful. So while you're chanting this chant, I'll do it a couple times in the lower register, a couple times in the upper, and then it repeats. And while you're chanting, try to close your eyes. Try to really feel the heart. It's hard sometimes in a big group of people to feel like you're alone and drawing inward, but that's what you want to do. You want to feel as though your aura is large, that you are, when the eyes are closed, just feel as though you are in your own space. Feel as though your heart is opening and you are singing for God, that you are trying to make that connection and bring His presence in your heart, and to also draw that energy up. The more energy we have in our brain area, the higher our consciousness can go. And so we're trying to draw that energy up. So let's just try chanting together. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt again.
Let's take this energy from the chanting right into a meditation, just a brief meditation. Again, let's check to make sure we're sitting up straight. Try to have your back away from the back of the chair, if possible. Have your shoulders rolled back and relaxed, chin parallel to the ground. And just try to feel the energy awakened by the chant, the openness of the chant. Any distracting sounds, just try to tune them out. If you find your mind wandering, then focus your attention on your breathing. Just notice when your breath moves in and out. Try not to control the breath, just watch its flow, in and out. Try to keep your mind observing this. And let's just meditate together for just a few minutes. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. In fact, let's just take a moment. This vibration of Om is, one can't even say ancient, it's universal, it's infinite. And let's just, with a sense, send 3 Oms out, chanting together, to use ourselves as channels of that harmony, channels of that vibration to others. Let's raise our hands and we'll just chant Om together 3 times. I'm sorry to see you standing. We don't want you to return, from this evening, kind of coming home with a sore back and sore feet and say, "What did you do?" "Oh, I went to a healing workshop." So do try to be comfortable if you can. Yeah, there's space here. Okay. So just be aware when the projector goes on, just to make sure. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, in fact, we just were chanting Om, and I mentioned that it would be helpful to think of ourselves as sending this Om vibration out into the world and out to others. And that may seem like a little bit of a contradiction when the title of the program is Heal Yourself. Never mind the others, let them come to the workshop. I'm here for myself. And so, in fact, it's true. It's equally valid to chant Om, feeling that you're opening yourself to that vibration, that you're inviting that Om to come in, to rejuvenate you, to replenish you. And of course, this can be done in many ways. It can be done silently, but it also can be done by this holding the hands up and chanting Om very powerfully with the awareness, with the openness, the invitation to that vibration to come into you. You see, we get a lot more out of it when we do it consciously versus if we just chant Om and hope for the best. Maybe some Om will come to me, I don't know, but this is what you're supposed to do, so I just chant it. A lot more comes when we're open to it. Studies have shown, for example, people in forests, going to forests they're called oxygen baths because the trees give off so much oxygen. This is popular particularly in Japan, that they gain more from it when they are consciously trying to draw that healthful oxygen, in this case, into their bodies, as opposed to if they're just hoping the right stuff goes in. And so similarly, a student of Yogananda's was anemic. He had low iron in his blood. And the doctors had told him the only way to cure anemia is to eat meat. And this man, he was from Mexico. As a disciple of Yogananda, he knew that Yogananda had advised his students to avoid meat if they could, and so he didn't want to. And so he sort of resisted, and they said, it's the only way. Don't be unscientific or philosophical when your health is where your health is concerned. So he, instead of that, he was a stubborn man, and in this case it worked to his favor. He went and he would sit near the window of his place in the morning, and he would consciously try to draw the sun rays into his body. He had read Yoganandaji's teachings. Yoganandaji had perhaps said it to him, that if you consciously draw energy into your body, again with this openness, I want to be healed. Even that statement, you might think it's obvious that we want to be healed, but it's funny how sometimes that thought doesn't occur to us, that we want to get better. I just don't feel well. That thought is clear, but I would like to feel better. That thought itself can suddenly raise the energy. So he was consciously drawing this light in from the sun and also stroking his arm, which is another technique. This is in addition to just moving energy. It's also sometimes when the body is unwell, sometimes all it needs is to be cared for. Just as they say, TLC, tender loving care. It's not a new drug on the market. It's just by a little bit of caring, somehow it can allow us to open up and to heal. So he was doing this, and then he went back to the doctors after a month, and they said, your anemia is cured. So good job on changing your diet. And he didn't say anything. He wasn't going to argue with them. But again, that receptivity, that openness. So when we chant Om in this way, let us feel. Let this vibration that's passing through me also heal me. But I had said, let's send that energy out to others. That itself is healing for us also. Yoganandaji said the channel is blessed by that which flows through it. So when we are sending healing energy, in the process, we are sort of sneakily getting healed ourselves because the energy is going through. You can think of it like a hose. The hose is sending water to the garden, to the plants, to help them grow. But in the meantime, the inside of the hose is getting washed, getting cleaned. And so the principle here is one that has been confirmed. There is a shrine, I should say, in France where miraculous healings take place. It's like some of the shrines here in India, which are known for, particularly for people having miracle healings. And so this shrine is in Lourdes, and France, and there was a professor who wanted to research all these healings and find out if he could see any correlation among them, anything that they had in common. And so he sent these long surveys to people who claimed that they had been healed at this shrine. And so the most common answer he found occurred on one question, meaning of all the questions, there was one that had a commonality among most of the people, which was, what were you doing at the moment that the healing took place? And they all said, or most of them said, I was praying for someone else. You see, isn't that beautiful? That it's true. And so keep that in mind. When we direct energy to others, then it also helps us to become healed. In a way, it's an unselfish act, and the other way, it's a selfish act. But as Anandamoyi Ma told Swami Kriyananda once, she said it's divine selfishness. Divine selfishness, to try to be open to that divine energy and to share it. So this is very helpful to keep in mind when we're thinking about how to heal myself. You see, healing, so often we are aware of the need to heal by the symptom or the problem, which so often is pain. Whether it's an actual, ouch, my arm hurts, or it's, I'm very tired, I have no energy, and it's painful even to walk, or other kinds of manifestations. Very often it's just pain in some form. And so pain is nature's way, or our body's way, of alerting us to the problem, that there is a problem. But how did we get to there? there was sort of a whole bunch of steps preceding it, but often we can think of healing as, let me repair the problem in somewhat of a mechanical way. The car is broken, take it to the mechanic. The body is broken, take it to the doctor mechanic. Have him repair the damage. This is not a bad practice. I myself go to doctors. I went to a doctor once because I bit into an apple and my jaw right here exploded in pain. And I felt it, and it was still there, but it was just hurting so much. And every time then I opened my jaw and closed it, incredible pain. Obviously, a nerve was being pressed on by the jawbone here. And so I had a very hard time for some number of days. And I went to a doctor who was like a chiropractor who adjusts, through the spine and different things. And he said, what has happened is that your jaw has slid out of alignment. Instead of being straight like this, it's sort of pushed to this side. And so this part of your jaw is pinching that nerve. And so I just thought, was this my bad luck? Was it a poisoned apple? Where did this come from? That suddenly I should have this pain. Of course, that's why I went to him. And he said, well, are you doing anything that would be pushing your jaw this way? He didn't ask me, but I wondered, should I check? How do I hold my phone? Or something like, what could I possibly do? And then I realized that for various reasons, at night, I was sleeping on the left side of my face, with this side of my face on the pillow only. I wouldn't switch to the other side. I would just stay on the left side. This had been going on for months and months. And so perhaps I wondered, was that it? That just sort of like a glacier or tectonic plates or something that slowly, I had pushed my jaw too far to one side. So I mentioned this to him. He said, good, don't do that. So I said, okay. And then he did different sort of adjustments on my face and my jaw, and he was able to put it back in place. And as you can see, it more or less is the way it should be now, not, sideways. So again, the source of the problem wasn't the apple. It was this chronic behavior that I was doing that was slowly wearing my jaw out. And even that chronic behavior, that common action, was coming from a particular thought. I wanted to sleep on just this side of my face. I didn't want to sleep on the other side. And so from that thought, put into action, repeated again and again, that's what ended up being the cause of my pain and injury and need for healing. And if only someone had told me, by the way, if you're laying on this side of your face forever, which I might have guessed in retrospect, but anyway, you're going to have a problem. I could have fixed the thought and the behavior first without going to the doctor, and it would have cost even less. But the thing that we have to remember then is that to look for the causes behind the injury, if we can. We're going to approach healing in two ways today. It's not only looking at the source, it's also, now that I find myself in this situation, what can I do about it? There's philosophy later. First, I have to feel better. And so, one thing to keep in mind with this is that as such, we will be speaking of healing techniques from yoga rather than from allopathy, from sort of common modern medicine, if we want to call it that. And so I want to also say very clearly, this is not a talk against modern medicine. One time Swami Kriyananda was speaking on this subject, and someone said to him that we should do only homeopathy, we should do only Ayurveda, only work with those things that are holistic and healing for the body. And he said, I would love for that to be true. He said, I always try whenever I have an ailment that needs some kind of outward remedy. I try those natural healing methods, of course. He said, but there are just some things that my body has wrong with it that require allopathy. He said he had some diabetes thing. He had so many problems going on with his body that when he went to a hospital in Europe for a problem, the doctors were passing around his medical case history in fascination, that it had so many things that he had going on and that he was still alive. We feel that Swamiji was taking the karma of many people onto his body. It's not uncommon that for spiritual people to do so, or even before they're in a position to take on the karma of others, even to work through their own karma. Not necessarily for Swamiji, but for others of us. Sometimes it's a good use of the body to burn karma off on it. I wouldn't try to do it consciously, just if it happens, let it happen. But it does happen. And so the thing about then this, when he was talking about healing, he said, listen, these drugs are keeping me alive. And I've had some heart surgeries, he had knee replacements. He said this was the only thing that could work. I tried other things. So in other words, we want to be practical. And practical, especially according to yoga, is do what works. So find something, and if it works, then do that. That goes both ways. Don't be satisfied with a solution unless it's working. And then also don't hesitate to reevaluate a suggestion if it isn't working. You see, sometimes we're in the middle of a process and we think, well, this is supposed to work, but maybe it isn't, and we just need to admit that in order to then find another way. They say if you find yourself in your life with your habits digging yourself into a pit, the first thing to do is stop digging. You see, if we're going in a particular way and it's not leading us to happiness, we should pause and reevaluate. It doesn't always mean we have to change course. It may be that that happiness is still to come. We are going in the right direction. But we should always ask, does it work? And in particular, is it working for me? You see, we can't give the same method to every person and expect them to be cured. And putting it another way, just because something worked for somebody else, it may or may not work for us. There was a case of a man who, in India, who Swami Kriyananda was told this by a physician who was involved in the case. This was probably in the 60s or 50s or maybe earlier. There was a man who was on his deathbed, and the doctors had all come and they had all tried, they'd given him every kind of test there was, and they just said, there's nothing for us to do. We're sorry. You've just reached a point where not only do we not know what's wrong with you, we don't know what to do about it. And so, you'd better prepare yourself. And so there was a friend of this man who was himself a physician. In fact, he had been this man's physician for years. And he had retired from medical practice, but he heard that this friend of his was on his deathbed, and so he came to visit him. And when he came to the house, he took one look at him, and he said, "Enache," or some equivalent of that. He said, "Taire erutuko." Kurd sapringa. Those are basically the 6 Tamil words I know. Have some yogurt. Nothing's wrong with you. And the other doctors thought, wow, this man used to be a smart physician, but he's obviously lost it. What can you do with curd? So they just left cynically. And the man thought, well, there's no harm in it. Nothing else is working. So he had some curd. In 3 days, he was cured. Don't ask me to explain. And I'm also not selling curd. But still, how could even this happen? You see, this doctor was of the old school, the old philosophy, you could say, that was practiced earlier in medicine, which was more getting to know the patient one-on-one. He knew this man for years and years. He had been to his home. He had seen his environment. But he also practiced based on intuition in addition to learning, as opposed to a case, sort of diagnosis. You are exhibiting symptoms of malady number 618F. Here, take this tablet. He knew the whole person. Maybe, doctors, of course, are healers also. Maybe it was their relationship, which matters a lot, actually. In fact, there was a study done among different psychiatrists. This was in the field of psychiatry, among what are the good healing techniques, the good sort of what's the right method. There's all kinds of different therapies. And they were trying to see if they could statistically show that this one was more effective at working with patients than another. And what they found was that overall the most important factor was as you could probably guess, the relationship between the healer and the person being healed. More than whatever modality or technique or prescription they gave, what was their relationship? Was there an openness especially? And that, more than anything, led to the healing. And so maybe that was a factor in this case too, I don't know. So it's one thing to keep in mind that when we're working on healing, that we want to be open to that healing. And we also want to go to a source, follow a technique, get a training, whatever it is that we are attracted to, that we feel will help us. No point in doing something we think won't work. So at the root of all of this, though, in terms of how do we even heal the body, we can ask. How does the body heal? When it does it automatically, we're happy. Who cares how it does it? Just keep doing it. Whatever you do, body, just heal yourself. But when it doesn't, we have to even ask ourselves, what is this body? You see, we are aware of our bodies. They seem like objects, made of bones and muscles and nerves and all these things. And that's my body. And don't worry, I'm not going to say it's not true. It is true, but only on a certain level. You see, how is the body generated? How is it maintained? It is through cellular reproduction. The cells are always dividing themselves through mitosis. The body is always growing, and what it is doing is parts of the body are being lost, very simply, hair, especially in my case, but also skin, other things the body is losing and regenerating, regrowing, according to a pattern set by the DNA. Of course, it's deeper than DNA, but we'll rest at DNA for now. So the DNA is constantly regenerating the body according to this pattern. In other words, the bones you have, the skin you have, even the face you have now is none of those cells are the same as, say, 10 years ago. I don't know the exact number of years in which all the cells are changed, but it's something like that. Our brain cells are different cells than they were, say, 10 years ago. So we have to even ask ourselves, which body are we talking about? We've been generating actually enough cells for many bodies over all these years. So it's not so much the physical expression, but it's this energy pattern. Again, as I said, implemented by the DNA. So then we can get to the point of thinking, as used to be thought, that DNA is fixed. And so whatever you do, that's the pattern you get. Nothing can be changed. Once the DNA is set in an individual, that's just how they are. And anytime you find a statement like that in science or medical science, just wait a few years and then eventually they'll take it back. It was the same thing with the brain. The brain grows to a certain size, and when you're 18, it slowly shrinks and decays. And so basically you'll be as smart as you ever were at 18, which anyway, I used to think that was true when I was 18. But as you get older, you start to think, no, there's more to it. That it's not, just because the physical structure of the brain isn't growing anymore, the interconnectedness within the brain is growing very much. And so it's more this network within the brain that's much more important about expressing intelligence. So, going back to this other story with the DNA, it is actually, people have found, the genome, human genome people and others, have found that DNA is more like a recipe, in the sense that it isn't necessary that everything be included or activated and you follow the recipe every time. When you have a recipe, you may see that it says optional, add nuts. And I don't know about you, I've had periods in my life where I felt like my DNA was adding nuts, or I was acting nuts. And so these things are optional though. Some can be added into the recipe, some can be taken out. And so it isn't at all, even according to biology, it isn't a fixed thing. And so this leads us to understand a little more how we can work with our bodies and work with healing on a fundamental level. How the way we think could actually affect our physical body. how the way the attitudes we hold, how something like chanting could bring about a physical healing. It's one thing to say, yes, yes, I chant and it makes me feel better. But it's another thing to say, I chanted and my BP went down. And so, in fact, I should mention, just because of bringing up blood pressure, that meditation, for example, and chanting, and prayer, and so on, are very effective ways to treat blood pressure. And so, again, you have to see what works for you. But these have been documented very heavily in the West. It started because people who had high blood pressure had some other problem, chronic problem that they were taking medicine for, and they couldn't take the BP pills also because the drugs would interact with each other. So they had to do something besides medication. So the doctor said, well, then try meditation. Because, you're hopeless anyway. You can't have pills, and so why not try to meditate? See if it helps. They found that it helped incredibly, which I think may have been slightly concerning to the drug companies, that all you could do is just sit and meditate and lower your BP that way. So we want to think in terms of what can I do with energy? What can I do with my energy? And so the core, you could say, technique taught by Paramhansa Yogananda was the energization exercises, or one of the core techniques. And these exercises, they're similar to the exercises we began with, but they're also a little bit different. There are 39 of them in all. I'm not going to introduce you to them at this evening, but we do have a class in them in meditation and so on. But I'd like to share with you a few things you can practice right now. The first is called a double breath. A double breath looks like this. So it's a short and then a long inhalation through the nose, and then a short and long exhalation through the mouth. So they're not even. Longer, and then longer on the way out. Okay? So let's try that together. Why don't you sit up? Sitting up straight allows energy to flow in the spine more easily, like a hose. And together, let's do a double breath in, again through the nose, and then out through the mouth. So remember, this is a double breath. It's not one single, it's a double. Sorry. Pardon me. So, and then, okay, let's do that once more. Very good. He said one of the benefits of the double breath is that it oxygenates the blood more readily. We bring in more oxygen than usual. More oxygen than usual when we inhale, and we throw out more carbon dioxide than usual. This was interestingly confirmed for us by a friend of ours who is practicing these teachings. His sister was ill and was in the ICU recently. She had a chronic problem. Does anyone remember Sachit's sister? She had some sort of chronic, I don't know if it was diabetes, but dialysis, thank you. She was on dialysis. And of course, as such, she always had to be closely monitored to see how she was doing. She had a problem with her oxygen level. Her oxygen level went low, and that's what brought her into the ICU. And so while she was there, they were struggling to bring that oxygen level back up. And so he taught her this breathing exercise just as a way to try to help her to feel calm. He wasn't writing a prescription for oxygen. He was just saying, look, just practice this just to help your nerves. Because, of course, she was afraid. When your oxygen is low, you feel like you can't breathe. You feel like you're suffocating. No matter how much you inhale, you're short of breath. So, of course, it's stressful, too. And so he taught her this exercise, and within a short amount of time, the doctors came back in, measured her oxygen, and it was up to 97%. And she was, of course, starting to feel better. And they said, what did you do to get this result? They were amazed. And I think it was just 2 days later she was able to go home. They only kept her for observation, just to be sure. But she was well. So again, the body has ways of healing itself. It could have been more than just this breath. However, it could have been also in her openness to let me do something myself for myself, as opposed to I'm here in a hospital and I hope somebody will fix it, otherwise I'm done. And so there again was probably more to it, but this was the breathing that she did for again, reoxygenating the blood. So let's do it one more time. Short, long through the nose, short, long exhale through the mouth. Very good. If you take only one technique from this, it could be this one. There's one other thing we want to do, though, because in addition to this breath, I said these are energy exercises. Certainly, I'm sure we're all familiar how breathing can affect our energy level. The science of pranayama is well known, of course, in India, where I don't know if it originated in India, it probably did, but it certainly has been preserved in India for thousands of years. And pranayama doesn't just mean breath control. I mean, if you were to translate the word into English, of course, prana control. And as I'm sure you know, prana also means energy. And so really what we're doing is energy control through a breathing technique. You can do energy control through other things too. Chanting, again, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed that chanting. And what made me enjoy it was the way you all participated. It was lovely, energy in the room. If that raises the energy, you can call that a pranayama too. You see, even though it has nothing to do with breathing per se. So, what we want to do is when we inhale with the double breath this time, we're going to tense all the muscles of the body. Okay, we're going to tense them low, medium, and high tension, like you're sliding a switch up, or you're turning a fan switch higher and then turning it back down. We're not going to just tense and relax. We're going to tense low, medium, high tension until even the body is vibrating. And then we're going to relax from high, medium, to low, to zero tension. Okay? So let's first just practice the tensing part. Let's tense, you again, sit up straight so your body is aligned. And then let's tense low tension, and then medium tension, and then high tension until even the muscles are vibrating. And now we're going to relax, but be careful, don't just drop it. Start from here, and now relax to medium tension. Still firm, but not vibrating, and then to low tension, and then to nothing. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, let's try it again now that we've got it. Tense low, medium, high tension, and then now let's relax high to medium to low to zero. Okay? One benefit of tensing in this way is that you don't hurt yourself. Again, we don't want you to come home from the healing workshop all sort of damaged from the exercises. But also, when we do it like this, we have to use more of our awareness. It's easy to just tense and then relax. But to tense increasingly, and you always can find you can tense more than we thought. That's an amazing thing. It's an exercise that, why not? We'll just do it. Let's tense the right arm. Tense your right arm low, medium, and now high, maximum. Is that maximum? Okay, now tense it harder. You see, isn't that amazing? You can relax. Almost everybody finds that above maximum there is a second maximum, and even one beyond that, inora maximum. We can always tense a little harder than we think, which is a helpful thought to remember when we're going through a hard time. That this has been a very hard time, but if I can just push a little longer, maybe I can get through it. You see, all of these things, disease, challenges, even our attitudes, are determined in a large part by our karma. I'll touch briefly on this, but this is another topic. I don't want to go too much into karma right now, because the whole point is whether there's karma or not, whether it's from this life or not, the fact is, what do I do about it? This is the attitude of yoga. So, in any case, though, you can sort of think of it as three types of karma, which is to say three situations we can find ourselves in. It's from an obscure verse of the Gita, where Krishna says, when just as fire is hidden by smoke, or a mirror is covered by rust, and as the embryo is enclosed in the womb, so is the wisdom of the soul darkened by Maya. And you're sort of, okay, smoke and the mirror and embryo? And so often you'll even see in commentaries that people will sort of gloss over this stanza, because what could it mean? But Yoganandaji explained that Krishna is speaking of 3 different kinds of karma, or 3 different kinds of challenges we can face. Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic, if you're familiar with the gunas. But in this kind of a situation, if smoke is hiding a flame, all we have to do is, because it says this, the wisdom of the soul is eclipsed, is hidden. So if the fire is hidden by smoke, we just blow the smoke away and there's the fire. And that's about all it takes to fix the problem. If there is rust on a mirror, and this, of course, in older times, mirrors were metallic and they didn't necessarily have the glass over the metal, so the mirror could rust, and then it would be harder to see. So if you take something or other and scrub it hard enough, and you may build up a little bit of a sweat, but then the mirror will be polished. So it's more than just this simple thing, but it's still not too difficult. But for the embryo in the womb, as we all know, you can do whatever you want. It's going to take 9 months. Might as well just sit back and let it run its course. There's no amount of, Googling you can do or Wikipedia. Nothing can help. You just might as well sit and bear it out. And so in this same way, some of our tests require a little bit of blowing away of the smoke. Some of them require more effort, and some just require that we hang in there, that we endure. And this is one very important point I want to make, because sometimes when we talk about healing can be affected through attitude, through mind power, we can sometimes have the misunderstanding that if we are unwell, it's because of our own wrong attitude. And on one level, of course, probably this is true in the sense that until we are self-realized and one with God, we do have some little problems with our attitude. So everybody's in the same boat that way until, again, we're liberated. So we can count on that. That's sort of the usual problem, or you could say the only real problem. But sometimes people talking about positive attitude then will turn to someone who's suffering, I'm not indicating it anyone, just some other person suffering, and say, it's because of your negative attitude. If you were positive, this wouldn't have happened. If you had done this puja, this wouldn't have happened. If you hadn't done whatever, this wouldn't have happened. And that is an unfair conclusion to the person, and it is spiritually dangerous for the person so casually passing the judgment. As Master said, if you judge or criticize anyone, you are dooming yourself to experience their circumstances of which you disapprove so uncharitably. He didn't say it like this. He just said, be careful. We don't really know what another person is going through. Often some people, this even happened to me to some extent. I was very confident about physical health, and though compassionate towards people who had long-term suffering, I couldn't say I had any empathy. I couldn't relate to what they were going through because I had always been well until I got unwell. That's the problem with health. You have it, then you don't. And so suddenly I became tuned into what it is like to struggle each day with that kind of physical impediment. And so again, we should be cautious in thinking we understand what's wrong with someone else, especially. Another thing that's tricky about illness and karma is sometimes the very thing, which you've probably experienced, the very thing that will heal us is the thing we forget. Like, for example, I have an allergy. My nose is so congested and I've got this headache and so on. And my wife will say, why don't you take an allergy pill? I was, wow, what a good idea. I never thought of that. It's true. She's had to say it about 1,000 times. I should probably just write on the mirror, take an allergy pill. Because in the time that I'm suffering from it, that's the thing I forget. Whereas if someone else is suffering, I say, take an allergy pill. If it's not me, there's a saying that in English that those whom the gods would destroy, they make mad first. Meaning just that thing that will cure us is the thing we forget. You can think of it as poor Karna in the Mahabharata, having that curse that right when he needs the Brahmarastra or whatever the weapon was, he was cursed to forget it. You see, not that it wouldn't work, not that his aim would be off, but that he would forget it. There's a deep symbolism in that because it's what we go through all the time. And so it can be helpful then to have friends, to have a support network of people who can give us these kinds of suggestions. So keep in mind that an illness is often more than a physical thing. It can affect our minds, even if it's a thing with the digestion or something. And I don't just mean because we have a stomach ache, it's hard to concentrate. Again, this thing of even a negative outlook, feeling badly for ourselves. We also have to remember the positive aspects of illness. And I'm not suggesting go out and get ill, it'll help you. But in fact, the masters definitely say do not. That it's important to have a healthy, sound instrument of the body. But sometimes an illness is a way, as I mentioned before, of burning off karma. Swami Kriyananda knew of a saint in India who would pray for others and they would get well. And she was a young girl. She was about 16, I think, at this time. Sorry, this is my little timer going off to remind me of the time. So this woman saint would pray for others and they would get well. And as a result, she had a large following. But her own father was chronically unwell. And her mother said to her, please also pray for him. And she said no. Actually, the girl kept silence, but she would write notes. And so she wrote, no, she wouldn't heal him, and she refused. And they kept saying, it's not fair, you heal all these other people, and your father, of course, gave birth, all the things that they tried. And she resisted. She didn't give a reason, she just said, no, I won't. Finally, they basically trapped her philosophically and said, you don't want to heal him because he's your own father. And that would be showing some sort of particular care because he's related to you. But refusing to heal him because he's your own father is also showing the same prejudice. So what could she do? She gave up. But she wrote, you will see what will happen. She prayed for her father. He got well. But as soon as he got well, finding all this strength coming back, he left the family and lived a very dissolute life. That illness was a way of working out that bad karma and keeping him in check and letting him burn through it that way. But when he had his energy back, the karma was too strong and it took him away. So in that case, it would have perhaps, as the saint said, been better for him to work it out naturally. So we don't know always with our own illness with others that what's going on. We have to finally ask ourselves, what is the point just of healing this body? Certainly, as I said, the yogis say, have a healthy body, for sure. But are we going to avoid death? I don't think so. I mean, we all end up there. In fact, we were just in Benares yesterday, and people were making a joke. Someone was saying where they were going to. Which ghat was it? Manikarnan? That one. They said, where are you going? They said, we're going to the burning ghat. One way or the other, we will be ending. Whether you go left or right, you will end up there. And so the thing is, we shouldn't be too afraid of death. If anything the masters have told us is true. Because, Swami Kriyananda said, why be afraid of death? Think of how many times you've died already. Just to get here. How many lives have we had? And no matter what we do, unless there's some kind of loophole, which Babaji seems to have found, to live for an exceptionally long time, the rest of us won't. But so the question is not just how do we preserve the body or what do we do, but rather what do we become through our experiences. A correct attitude now, developed through fighting for health, for example, will help us in the next life. Those kinds of strengths, those treasures of right attitude, of yoga and meditation and so on, of devotion, these we do take with us. And so for that reason, we should fight for health, even in this lifetime, as an affirmation of life. And again, that will serve us well in the future. Well, I'd like to now hand it over to Dharmini to continue the program.
Okay, you're all hanging in there. Luckily, this room is air conditioned. Yoganandaji spoke so much on this healing topic. He wrote many books on this healing topic. He spoke about it a lot. And one of the main points of healing he brought up was that healing in general is really about spiritual healing and nothing else. And even though we focus on the physical, focus on, my arm hurts or whatever is going on physically, it's really a spiritual issue going on. And I definitely do not mean we're bad and we brought something on our own. Just as Dharmarajan was saying, it's very important not to get into judgment around illness. For most of my life, I was incredibly healthy until we moved to India about 10 years ago or 9. When did I move? 12 years ago, we moved to India. We had a little break in the middle, but we were in Gurgaon, Delhi area, and I caught parasites. And before that, I was an athlete. I could climb mountains, I could ski, I did all sorts of things, lots of vigorous hiking, swimming, every kind of sports activity you could imagine I could do. And I kind of identified with being just a very healthy person all the time. And I remember I worked with a young man who's now a friend, and he's not a young man anymore because we all get older, don't we? And I joined Ananda about 26 years ago. And I was an electrical engineer before that, and this was when I was having all this wonderful health. And then I did quit my job as an engineer and began working for Ananda, and one of the places I worked was a bookstore. And so in this bookstore, this man who, like I said, is a friend now, but at the time I felt judgmental, and his back was out all the time. He had some back injury, not the kind where he fell and it was an obvious injury. It was the type where over time it gets worse and worse, that kind of a thing. And now I know him. It's much better. He still has to be careful of it. But at the time, it was so bad. And again, I said we were in a bookstore. He could barely pick up a book without making his back hurt. And when he did it, you could see like that. But I thought he was feeling sorry for himself. I wasn't like, bad boy or anything like that, but just a little thought in my mind like, is his back really that sore? Can he really not pick up a book? I had never met anyone whose back was so sore who couldn't pick up a book. So, and I've known different people throughout life who have had different illnesses, and when you don't have that illness, as Dharmarajan said, you just have no idea. And so since that time, even before getting the parasites, I was at some rehearsal, and I sat in a chair and leaned forward for about 8 hours, not realizing I was doing that. What happened? My back got so sore that I could barely move. I could not do anything but lay down for a couple months. And I got to learn, this is probably what he experienced, isn't it? Compassion is a very good quality, isn't it? So we just don't know. And then when I got parasites, I was bedridden on and off for years because I couldn't find the right thing to heal it. I tried Ayurveda, homeopathy. First, my preference is always to do some of the more natural things first. And then we had to go back to the U.S. for other reasons. And Swami Kriyanandaji assigned us we were at Ananda Village, which is one of the locations where Ananda is in the United States. Swamiji reassigned us from, after spending 4 years in Gurgaon, we went to Los Angeles, and we were the spiritual directors in Los Angeles. And I was dealing with the illness, but I could still function on and off most of the time. So the beauty of that was, and this was after 6 years of being ill with parasites, was that the one man who deals with that specific parasite lived in Los Angeles. And he was a gastroenterologist and a naturopath. So he did both types of healing. But he even said, yes, the parasite you have can't be healed through natural means. It's resistant to natural means. And here I was, I've got to heal it through natural means. You know, I had no idea. But I opened myself up to having this way of healing happen, and I learned a lesson that way also. Although I've never been one to never go to allopathic doctor, but you know, if I could do it in a different way. But this required that type of healing. So we have to be open to what is God telling us when we're having some type of illness. What is he telling us that we have to be open to, that we have to listen to? And so this doctor did help me heal, not fully, but mostly fully. And then right before our Swamiji left his body, he had reassigned us to Chennai. He had come to Chennai. Many people came to a talk here in Chennai before we had a center here in 2013. And he gave this talk, and it was very powerful. 3,000 people showed up at the Music Academy. Only 2,000 could fit in the place. And he knew Chennai needs to have a Kriya Yoga, Ananda Kriya Yoga Center. So he called us and asked us to come over. I was a little concerned about my health at the time. And it had been healed through this medicine, but my strength was not fully back. And so a few months later, unfortunately, he left his body. And I felt when he left his body that something went through and kind of help brush out a lot of the illness that might have still been left. And so it was a very powerful thing. So many different approaches had to happen with just this one silly illness. It still affected my body long term, and I'm still working on that. But thank God I'm functional again and all sorts of things. But what it really helped me know and learn was you just never know, just as Dharmarajan said. When we see someone, and it's not just about illness, it's about someone going through a problem, somebody having financial issues, somebody having family issues. Whatever issues others have that we don't have, we often think, oh, I know how to deal with that one. You know, in fact, devotees do it to each other all the time. They'll say, oh, well, I know the perfect affirmation that Yoganandaji has. If you would just do this all the time, then you would get well. You know, it comes from enthusiasm, but we have to find the thing that works for us, as Dharmarajan was saying also. So I'm going to go over a few things that are just wonderful that Yoganandaji came up with. Of course, this is ancient yogic science. So it's all in the ether, and periodically people come in onto the earth plane and begin to do stuff. I'm not quite ready for the slideshow, but almost. What I'd like to open with is a healing prayer. And this is something Yoganandaji did a lot. We do this after every meditation that we do. And what it requires is that we think of a person we know in need of healing, and we think of them and their body as being perfectly well, not that we are willing it from our own will. We are asking God come through, because on some level, even if our bodies are broken, we are well. God is inside of us and he's not broken. So that part of us is completely well. And so we can visualize that person feeling well, feeling enthusiastic again about life, feeling courageous to face any problems coming into them, and feeling supported by either God's presence or by others to support them in their healing journey. So this is what we can do when we are trying to send energy to someone, is have confidence that they will get the help they need, that they will be supported as they need, and they'll be given the strength to work through what they're going to work through as they need. And we don't know what they're going through, but we can ask that of them, for them. So you can repeat after me for a prayer. First, let's close our eyes. And if you sit up straight, that's a bonus because it helps the energy flow upward. And so visualize that person you know of who's in need of healing. And erase from your mind how you think they should heal. Erase from your mind the outcome of what it should be. Think more instead of allowing God's will to work with the healing energy in the way that that person is meant to have it. And so let's see them surrounded by God's healing light, surrounded in joy, surrounded in confidence and support, surrounded in love. And let's pray together. Divine Mother, Thou art omnipresent. Thou art in all thy children. Manifest thy healing presence in their bodies, in their minds, and in their souls. Now rub the hands together. This magnetizes the palms to allow energy to flow in that direction. We're asking God's energy to flow through us. So as we hold the hands up and chant Om, we're going to do that 3 times. Feel as though the energy is flowing through you. It's not your energy doing this. It's God's energy flowing through. Let's chant Om. 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 Shanti, shanti, shanti. So whenever, we do this every day. We do this after our meditations. We do this when we find out someone is not feeling so well. And you can do it quietly. You don't have to do it in the middle of work, in your cubicle. But what you can do is use this as a technique. Every technique we speak about today, we have written down. And so if you've given your email address, we can send that to you. So the healing prayer, Divine Mother, Thou art omnipresent, Thou art in, and you can, when you do it by yourself, say Thou art in Lakshmi. Manifest thy healing presence in her body, mind, and soul. And so you can do that and just feel as though that energy is flowing through. Again, we are not the healer in this. We are allowing God's energy to flow through. So another thing I want to, Yoganandaji kind of blended prayer, affirmation, and chanting together. And so now I'm going to go into affirmation. And the affirmations themselves, I've got a number that we can try. Affirmation is another way to help us shift our energy. Very much when we are encountering an issue, a problem in ourselves, we try and think it through logically. We try and write the pros, write the cons. Here's 10 good things about it. Here's 10 bad things about it. I'm going to make a logical decision. Therefore, I'll be able to solve my problem. But in actuality, a better way to solve the problem is by raising our consciousness level. When we raise our consciousness level, we can do it through meditation, we can do it through affirmation, we can do it through prayer. We raise our energy level, but we also change our consciousness. We shift our consciousness. When we're in a bad mood, can we solve our problems? It's very difficult. When we're in a bad mood, we're convinced that, oh, it's just not going to work out. But when we're in a happier mood, in a happier phase, suddenly all the solutions are there. And the mind has a subconscious part, the part that's kind of in the back that tells us you're not good enough and why are you going to wear that? And what will everyone think? These are those automatic negative thoughts that happen to us. Subconscious can be also not so negative, but those are the things we're most familiar. Then we have the conscious mind. That's the mind that is solving problems, making solutions, shaking and moving the world, making sure that we're moving forward, we're making the money we need, everything, we're dealing with people. It's kind of the material plane mind. Then there's the superconsciousness. That's the part of us that is connecting to God. When we're meditating and we feel a sense of peace, we're connecting to God. When we feel a sense of inner joy that is not related to anything that we've actually done, that joy that just exists within us and we've touched it because we meditated or because we chanted, that joy is there. That lifts our consciousness. When we just have a moment, you can be in the temple, it can be anywhere. You can be looking in someone's eyes and you feel great compassion. These things raise our consciousness to a level where suddenly we feel different. We can be in a horrible mood and our consciousness shifts and suddenly we see the world as not so bad. Suddenly we see the world of possibilities. Suddenly we see solutions to issues that we never saw before. That's because we allowed ourselves to shift into this higher consciousness. You can't do it through logic, and you can't do it through thinking, okay, I will now raise my consciousness. You can't do that. It's got to be through meditation. It has to be usually through a spiritual practice. This is what raises the consciousness. And when that happens, then you can create whole new habits in your life. You can create a whole new way of living. So does anyone here remember the record player? Maybe anyone 35 and under and over. I don't know. When did the record player go away? But maybe some people here have it. But definitely some won't remember what a record player is. And so remember the needle goes on the grooves. And Yoganandaji said our brains were like that record player. Whenever we do a habit, a groove is formed. And when we do that same habit over and over again, same groove is getting etched into the brain more and more deeply. That groove happens. And for us to change a habit, change our karma, Yoganandaji did believe we can change our karma by proper living and working our best at not creating new karma and taking the karma that comes to us and trying to shift it for the positive. Just a quick little explanation of karma. It is not punishment. We tend to think, oh, this is happening because of my karma. I did something in a past life and now it's coming at me. Or, I don't know if I got the back injury because I judged that guy. It could have been a past life when I judged someone at another time. But we don't know where karma comes from, and it's useless to think it's a punishment. What it is at one point we did an action when we were off center. At one point, whatever life, we were off center and we did something. And what karma does is it comes back to us to push us back to center. That's all. And so what happens when karma comes at us and we're already in our center? Much less, because we're not needing the correction. So what we want to do then is try and just live our lives in our center, accept calmly what comes to us, but not have this negative thought of karma, not have a negative thought of Saturn is bringing me my bad karma now. It's hard not to think that. But these grooves that come in our brains, maybe some are inherited from other past lives, because we do come into this life with already established behaviors, already established thoughts and beliefs that just haven't been awoken yet. So these affirmations that I'm going to go over, Yoganandaji gave a very nice explanation of how to approach an affirmation. Affirmation, japa, something said repeatedly in order to try and work on the subconscious brain to change it. Now, you can do japa for many different reasons, but you can also do it for changing behaviors and for healing. So, do we have...
We're having a problem with the file.
Oh, the file's not opening? Oh well, okay. I have the affirmations here. My karma, it's punishing me. What did I do? I was an electrical engineer. Maybe I, did something to a computer and now it doesn't like me. So, Yoganandaji wrote a book called Scientific Healing Affirmations, and Swami Kriyanandaji wrote a book called Affirmations for Self-Healing. Do we have any of those in the back? Okay. So, both of these books, plus many other books, are full of affirmations that are meant to help you bring healing into your life on some level. And when I was younger, there was a man named Tony Robbins who was very much this affirmation guru. And many people did that, and it worked for a little while for them, but not long term. And so people often go through a phase where, yeah, I tried affirmations already. They're okay, but they don't really work. Yoganandaji said what we have to do is, one, we have to come into alignment between our subconscious, our conscious, and our superconscious mind for a certain affirmation to be effective. If those three are not in alignment, the affirmation won't work. So, for instance, what would an affirmation be? I really want to, I don't want to use a bad example. But, okay, suppose you have diabetes, and there's a certain thing going on with diabetes, and you've decided, I'm going to do an affirmation to get rid of my diabetes. Well, if the superconscious mind, which is which is related to karma, and the conscious mind is saying, yeah, but I have diabetes. And the subconscious mind is saying, I have diabetes, I have diabetes, I have diabetes. That might not be the affirmation to try, which might be, I no longer have diabetes, I no longer have diabetes. So instead, we want to work with ourselves where we are. So for instance, what would happen if we brought more joy into our life instead? Could that possibly help heal other things over here on the side? Rather than hitting our heads against a wall, trying to solve a certain problem that we see as the problem, go around it. And if we go around it with other types of affirmations, we can very often help this. So there's a few affirmations. One is for joy. We're only going to do 2 affirmations, but I'm going to read them all, and then we'll do 2 of those. These first 4 are from Swami Kriyanandaji. So and these are all written down. So if you want them for the future, you might find one you like. Okay. So for joy, he wrote, I am even-minded and cheerful at all times. I know that joy is not outside me, but within. And then we say this over and over again. Okay, so that's just one. Another one is for forgiveness. All that befalls me is for my good. I welcome any hurts that I receive, so opportunities to grow in understanding. So each of these affirmations help heal a certain aspect of us. For contentment, through life's mightiest storms, I am contented, for I hold in my heart God's peace. So he brings in the quality of contentment. For willpower, my will is to do that which is right to do. Part all ye mountains that stand in my way, nothing can stop my progress. So I chose joy, forgiveness, contentment, and willpower because they're very beautiful qualities that you can focus on other than the hard problem you have. If you were to focus instead on contentment, what am I grateful for now in life? That can have a great healing effect on many other things. That's related to the meditation BP issue. Because with meditation BP, you're focusing on something else, you're relaxing the body, you're allowing healing energy to come into the body, and whoops, the side effect is my BP lowered. Not, I've got to lower my BP, I've got to lower my BP. That kind of a thing. So any issues that we have, any problems we have, try and bring this higher consciousness, spiritual concept into your life. Focus on those to help aid you in healing the other things that are happening. So why don't we do the affirmation for joy together? And this is how Yoganandaji taught doing affirmations. So first of all, when I read that, don't repeat after me yet. I'm even-minded and cheerful at all times. I know that joy is not outside me, but within. Now, you say, can I agree with that? I'm even-minded and cheerful at all times. Well, I'm not even-minded and cheerful at all times, but my soul is. So I could kind of maybe squeeze that one in there. Yoganandaji said if we do say it with enough willpower, we can make the groove that's on the brain move and create a new groove. But it takes willpower to do it. We'll do the willpower one next. So try this. Try sitting up straight, closing the eyes. First, with an affirmation, you start off with it very loud. So it's as though to tell the conscious mind what it's going to believe now, what it's going to follow now. Okay? So, I am even-minded and cheerful. At all times. I know that joy is not outside me, but within. I am even-minded and cheerful. At all times. I know that joy is not outside me, but within. Now a little more quietly. I'm even-minded and cheerful. At all times. I know that joy is not outside me, but within. Now try and focus at the point between the eyebrows. Try and feel that point there while we say it even more quietly. I'm even-minded and cheerful. At all times. I know that joy is not outside me, but within. I'm even-minded and cheerful. At all times. I know that joy is not outside me, but within. Now in a whisper, I am even-minded and cheerful. At all times. I know that joy is not outside me, but within. And now silently, just hear your mind say this. I'm even-minded and cheerful at all times. I know that joy is not outside me, but within. Allow your mind to think this. I'm even-minded and cheerful at all times. I know that joy is not outside me, but within. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So when we work with an affirmation, we do this daily. even twice in a day if you want. And because joy is within, we can be even-minded and cheerful. It's not that big of a leap, you know. And so these other affirmations also, maybe one feels good and another one doesn't. So you do the one that feels good. And then you do it every day. And you will find that a part of you changes through these affirmations. Let's see. Oh, that's right. That's not working. So I'd like to read two of Yoganandaji's affirmations. One is a really great one, and we'll do this one. The other one is long, and it's a little too complex to do, but it's a great one too. I'll read the long one first, okay? I am brave, I am strong. Perfume of success thought blows in me, blows in me. I am cool, I am calm. I am sweet, I am kind. I am love, I am sympathy. I am charming and magnetic. I am pleased with all. I wipe the tears and fears of all. I have no enemy, though some think they are so. I am the friend of all. I have no habits. In eating, dressing, behaving, I am free, I am free. That one takes a little more effort to get to know. But again, we have it written down for you. And you find that, you know, when Swami Kriyanandaji wrote these affirmations and when Yoganandaji wrote, Yogananda, he was in samadhi when he wrote his chants and when he wrote his prayers, when he wrote anything he wrote, including his affirmations. That means there is samadhi, energized words in the ether that we can directly tune into. That's the other reason why when we chant and we do an affirmation written by a great master, that we then feel uplifted. You can feel the whole room feeling uplifted after even saying an affirmation together. And it becomes miraculous when you are willing to put your own willpower behind it as well and continue to try it. So the one we're going to do, the other one that Yoganandaji wrote, is I will go forth in perfect faith in the power of omnipresent good to bring me what I need at the time I need it. And this is a very nice affirmation for when we feel insecure, when we are feeling as though there's not enough money or there's not enough love coming to us or not enough friendship or whatever the not enough, fill in the blank. And this affirmation is perfect for bringing a sense of, oh yeah, this is who I am. When we connect with God through meditation, through an affirmation, when we make that connection, suddenly we have this inner strength and courage we forget that we have that's always inside of us. And so let's do this together. I will go forth, in perfect faith, in the power of omnipresent good, to bring me what I need at the time I need it. I will go forth in perfect faith in the power of omnipresent good to bring me what I need at the time I need it. And now quietly, I will go forth in perfect faith in the power of omnipresent good to bring me what I need at the time I need it. And now in a whisper, I will go forth in perfect faith in the power of omnipresent good to bring me what I need at the time I need it. And now mentally, I will go forth in perfect faith in the power of omnipresent good to bring me what I need at the time I need it. I will go forth in perfect faith in the power of omnipresent good to bring me what I need at the time I need it. So we will give you those affirmations. The other thing, we're running out of time, but the other thing I want to give you, I can't do the complete list of these exercises, but again, they are written down. Part of suffering, whether it's emotional, mental, or physical, can very much be in our emotional state. And we don't realize, as spiritual people, I'm going to just assume that if you were drawn to a talk that's sponsored by a yoga place, that you have some spiritual bones in you. That's why we freely talk about God. Of course, we like to say that in Chennai, even the atheists believe in God. I have to say we love being in Chennai. It's full of so much devotion. The people we have found are so kind. In terms of this mental and emotional suffering that we can go through, much of it can happen because our auras are weak and because we are not fully aware of what's going on around us. What I mean is, if we are in an environment that is negative, we underestimate how much we are affected by it. We underestimate it. We think, oh, well, I should be strong enough to deal with it. I should be strong enough. I should be. And then we come down with a cold, or we feel depressed, or we feel angry all the time, where we have these emotional issues going on with us and we don't know exactly where they come from. But what we're not aware of is they may be coming from the environment we're in, as opposed to just our own thing going on. I don't mean, great, now I can blame all my anger on someone else. But when we find that we're in an environment where a lot of negativity is coming at us, and if we don't do what we need to do in order to protect ourselves from that, then we can be very much affected. It can undermine our confidence. Imagine when you're in the boardroom or in the conference room with your boss, if that person is constantly thinking you're no good at your job and you are not a great person and why aren't you more aggressive or why aren't you more this, and they're thinking negative thoughts that we can't hear, but then suddenly we're in the meeting and we think, why am I feeling so bad about myself? Why am I thinking I'm not a good worker? Why am I thinking, all of these negative things about myself suddenly? It's because we're sensitive. We don't realize, people's negative thoughts and our own negative thoughts are like swords going through the air and poking people. Yoganandaji spoke about this. So when we think negative thoughts, we're piercing people with our judgment knives. And when people are doing that to us, they are piercing us with their judgment. It's much better to be neutral and not overly attached to our reaction to others or to what they do to us. It's much better to try and be in our center, but also practice some yogic self-defense. And so here's just a little bit of what Yogananda has done. Why don't you all stand up? So, one way where we're greatly affected by the environment is even at the mall. You walk into the mall, if you are probably more a woman than a man, but who knows? But you walk into the mall and what's there? This music that is so loud you can't even think. And maybe a big crowd of who knows what we're all thinking together. And suddenly we feel exhausted and tired and I've got to get out of there. But it could be also you're going into a conference with your boss who might be mean-hearted and you're a little afraid. So Yoganandaji taught this technique. I don't think you can all see, but he did a clap in the front, circled by a clap in the back, and then he says, Om Tat Sat, 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 Om Tat Sat. So when you're doing that, that is one way of trying to increase the aura. Yoganandaji said it can make our aura large, and a lot of what makes us feel weak and vulnerable around others is a weak aura. So Om Tat Sat is a way to do that. Now when you do it, try and feel centered, try and feel peace in your heart. Don't do it with Om Tat Sat. I'm gonna get out of my space. Get out of my space. You know, instead think of it more as I've got a big aura. I'm well protected. God loves me and is in my body and in my aura. So that's the Om Tat Sat one. Then the other one is my hands are down here, and you can see my hands are down here. And so then another one he said to do is you want to visualize light entering your body and flowing all the way up in an upward direction by going this. Om. So try it again. And feel as though the arms are coming up like this. You see that? They're not in Tadasana. They're up like this. Okay? So let's do that again. Here we go. Om. One more time. Om. And he said to do it 3 times. Om. So you can have your seat, or please take your seat. And so we didn't really have enough time to feel the effects because we just sat down. But when we do this and surround ourselves in Om, Yoganandaji said that surrounding yourself in Om is a great protection, that it brings a lot of protection. And so these are things we can do with our own willpower, with our own thoughts. I'll see if there's one more. So this one is for when someone is really trying to send you bad energy. He said you use your thumb and imagine a blue cross like this. So, and that you just say, this one's just Om, right? Or just the blue cross? Yeah, that's right, just the blue cross. I'm confusing my techniques. So you visualize the person and you just do a blue cross to try and create psychic distance between yourself and them. And you have to use, some visualization when you're doing it. And then the last one is Om Hring Kring Krishnaya Namaha. And that is a Sanskrit mantra that is a mantra that helps protect the energy we have, but not just protect, it breaks up negative energy coming up. So the Om Hring Kring Krishnaya Namaha, the Hring Kring helps break up negative energy coming for us. All of these techniques that we do, it's very important to not feel negativity towards the person. The blue cross and the Om Hring Kring can bounce negative energy back to them, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to practice that. It's bad karma. So we get neutral in our hearts, and then we wish them the best, but we're saying distance is needed. Some people lack self-control, and so it means it's up to us to be what's called be the big kid. And so that means when someone else is out of control and acting crazy, whether it's towards us or others, sometimes the big kid is the one that has to be mature and say, I wish you the best, but this is not working. And for your sake, I am doing these things. It won't control them, but it could help you from having to be the sponge that soaks in the negativity that's coming at you. So there's a number of other of these techniques that I can't go over because it's time to end. But really, with Yoganandaji's techniques, it's endless how many things there are.